permissions and authorization. I designed one example for that. I will post you that example by today evening so that you can practice it. That is for the people who know server side technologies. That means how we can create a login register like options, authenticating with. Only Angular side you cannot manage. You have to use combination of all these integrations actually. So people who are involved in server side technologies, they can implement this authorization and authentication. An example I created for that, I will post you that example. You can go through that because just like how we accessed the data and submitted the data, we learned about HTTP service request and response, how we can manage the same. Only the point is the logic for securing the modules we have to write based on the server side integrations. That is what actually authentication and authorization. That is not under the Angular security actually. That is not under the Angular security. Technically, Angular security is nothing but preventing the application from certain attacks. That is actually Angular security. So many people are confused in this. So they think that registration, login, this comes under security of Angular. That is all server side integrations. Actually, the Angular security includes three things. One is reporting. So we can say vulnerabilities. Reporting vulnerabilities. So that is one important in Angular security. And preventing so excesses. That is cross-site scripting attacks. And preventing request forgery. These are the concepts of Angular security actually. That means, and very important is Angular provides built-in protections. Angular provides built-in protections. So that means actually it is a concept of security related to various attacks. Remember, so here that is where important point you should know is actually, so Angular provides built-in protections. Angular provides built-in protections against common web application vulnerabilities, and attacks actually, So important is it is not dealing with application level security. Applications level security such as authentication. That means who is the user, right? So authorization means so what can this user do? It is not about that. So generally you need to be clear in understanding the concept actually, because many people ask, will you teach security in Angular? Will you tell about security in Angular? And immediately they ask how to create a login page and a registration. Registration page is not security. That is application level authentication and authorizations, and that is completely the concept which you have to deal with with integration of server-side technologies, with integration of server-side database and all right? So I will post one example. So for that process with MongoDB, as we learned, you can try that. If you belong to any another server-side technologies like ASP.NET or Java, JSP and all, so there you have to handle with your technologies in the backend, right? This is about handling the securities and what is technically, so what is a cross-site scripting attack? So how we manage the cross-site scripting attack? That means actually two important options are there. So preventing cross-site scripting attacks. So that is one important security. So we call it as XSS, cross-site scripting attacks. As generally, I think many of you know that cross-site scripting attacks means, so it enables the attackers to inject any malicious code into web pages. So that means they can write queries. And they can submit into your application directly from page. That is what actually cross-site scripting. So this is one important regular issue here. So, and this is one regular problem here that we face in web applications. And what is the solution for this? That means what is the point actually is nothing but, suppose you have a text box. You asked the user to enter so product ID, and you given a text box to enter the product ID. So after you define here, then user is entering the product ID. So user is configuring the product ID. And after defining the product ID, he's trying to submit some query here. Means he's trying to submit some query here. Alert hello. Is trying to alert some hello. He's trying to submit some query here. And if he tries to submit some queries like this, or you ask to enter name, and he is submitting some name like this in bold letters. That means he is trying to submit some data to you along with some code, along with the code. So that means when you are doing this, then you have a lot of issues. That means if this is allowed, this is very dangerous. That means you are allowing somebody to write a query. That means he can inject code into your application, and that code can perform any operation and can even affect your application. So that means actually Angular uses sanitization and security contexts. So in order to handle these situations, to handle cross-site scripting attacks, it uses sanitization and security context. Actually, Angular defines several security contexts. So following security context. So many security contexts are there. One is HTML is used when interpreting a value as HTML. That is one problem. That means when you are binding with inner HTML, when